Hi, everybody. This is Andy Bauer. I chair the Portland Clean Energy Task Force. I'm also the coordinator for the Connecticut Energy Network. On behalf of the network, Clean Water Action, PACE Clean Energy, Save the Sound, and the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network, welcome. Our order of business, I'm going to run through my presentation. Bernie Pelletier and Charles Rothenberger will say a few words, take about 25 minutes, half an hour. Um, And then I'm hoping for a robust Q&A session. So please put your questions in the chat. The public benefits debate, I think everybody knows, has seen tempers flare, so please keep your questions respectful. Political policy, yes. Public insults, no. Deb Rowe of PACE will be monitoring the chat. She will read the questions at the end, and I or one of our invited speakers will answer as best as we can. Also, the most significant sources used here will be emailed to all registered participants, so you can check them out for yourself. The Connecticut Energy Network is a collaboration of local energy task forces or commissions across Connecticut. We're all volunteers. We're active in our hometowns conducting solarize, home energy solutions, or heat pump campaigns, basically things that save money. We support the public benefits charge because it supports these programs, which in turn means better air quality, reduce greenhouse gases, improve public health, jobs, economic boosts, you name it. The common denominator is cost savings. For example, regardless of your stance on climate change, when you find yourself paying less money on an electric bill after you've had a home energy solutions visit, well, it kind of makes you want to spread the word. All right. Our next speaker is someone who does that quite often, especially with houses of worship. Terry Eichel of the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network. Could I ask you to unmute and share how that's been working for you?
Thank you so much, Andy. As Andy said, my name is Terry Eichel, and I work with the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network. We're a faith-based environmental organization, so we work with religious communities across Connecticut on environmental issues. And in 2023, we really began to focus on how those environmental issues intersected with other areas of need. And so one of our focus areas has been energy efficiency and clean energy for houses of worship and their members. And we've worked with numerous partners to spread the word about these programs. And the result is that probably close to 200 houses of worship at this point have participated in those energy efficiency programs since that time, available through Eversource and UI. This actually doesn't count the houses of worship that have done that work through their municipal utilities. Houses of worship are enthusiastic about these energy efficiency programs. Our congregational buildings in Connecticut are beautiful and they are historic, but they are also very old and they are very drafty and they have out-of-date lighting and inadequate insulation, etc. So implementing these energy efficiency measures has helped them save so much money, which is money and funds that they can direct to their community. Union Baptist Church in Hartford specifically wrote to me and said, "We praise God that you let us know about this program." And they're not alone. Omega Seventh day Adventists in New Haven, First Congregational Church in Willimantic, Prospect United Methodist in Bristol, International Family Worship Center in New London, Temple B'nai Israel in Willimantic, First Congregational Church in West Haven are just some of many. And they're in every town and every corner of the state. Ansonia, East Haven, Chaplin, Coventry, Bridgeport, Preston, Torrington, and Reading, just to name a few. All over Connecticut, houses of worship are benefiting from these programs, which allow them, again, to help their communities more. And many aren't just stopping at the initial energy efficiency. They're investing in deeper measures. St. Stephen's in East Haddam and our Saints Lutheran in Thomaston are putting in heat pump hot water heaters. Congregation out of Israel in Middletown put in a whole heat pump system. South Congregational Church in Glastonbury installed solar, and Asylum Hill Congregational Church in Hartford is looking at a solar canopy for their parking lot. St. Pius X in Middletown is doing a massive energy efficiency project and ground mount solar, and Round Hill Community Church in Greenwich fully solarized their campus and is looking at geothermal. In addition, several houses of worship are also promoting the home weatherization programs to their members and helping people reduce their energy costs at home. So my group, our people, the people that we work, we believe we need to expand these programs and provide more stable funding so that people can access them more quickly. But in short, cutting these programs would be disastrous. We need to lean in, recognize the good they're doing, the measurable reduction in energy costs, the improved health, and the quality of life. Like I said, close to 200 houses of worship have participated already, but there are a lot that haven't. And these folks talk to each other. You've got clergy going to monthly, interfaith clergy meetings, or clergy and lay leaders going to denominational statewide meetings, or just neighbor to neighbor, talking to the person you live to next door or the house of worship across the town green. If we take these programs away, folks are going to have to explain to clergy and religious leaders why these programs that have helped so many other houses of worship and members of their community, why those programs are no longer available. So, like I said, we have worked with so many houses of worship and their members that have benefited. Um, we're very feel very strongly we need to protect these programs and expand them, not cut them. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. That's actually a great lead into this next point. We're doing this webinar because the public benefits have been inappropriately scapegoated as the reason our bills exploded last summer. And judging from the slew of anti-public benefits bills in front of the General Assembly's Energy and Technology Committee, the reality of what actually happened last summer has been badly misunderstood or ignored, which is worse. It's like having a broken leg and being told braces are the solution. All right, let me get this share going. Okay, so is everybody seeing the intro to the public benefit screen okay? Looking good? Okay, so let's back to the reality of what actually happened. Let's diagnose that reality. Okay, here's a graph showing the month-to-month electricity use on an average bill, which is 700 kilowatt hours or roughly $200. So yes, in July of 2024, there was an increase in one of the benefits components. It was small, so we're going to call that a bump. Yes, also in July of 2024, there was an increase due to the Millstone deal. That was much larger, so we're going to call that one a jump. And yes, also in July of 2024, air conditioning caused some to use a whole lot more juice because of the heat, in some cases double or more. That increase dwarfed the first two increases, and that's the prime driver of the spike. So I want to just show you that again. The public benefits bump, the Millstone jump, and the summer heat and humidity. We'll come back to this stuff, but let's first do a quick utility bill primer through the first three bill components. Supply is electricity that is produced from various power plants. Prices are hashed out between suppliers who submit bids and the utilities, who don't profit here but pass those costs through to ratepayers. Transmission is the big towers, projects okayed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, built by Eversource, costs passed on to ratepayers after being scrutinized by the Office of Consumer Counsel. This is a profit component for the utilities. And then local delivery, these are the power lines and transformers going up and down your street. Projects are determined and built by the utilities, watchdog by the OCC and PURA, where costs are periodically reviewed and adjusted. This is also a profit component for the utilities. All right, this next part isn't really spelled out clearly on your bill, but the public benefits charge is divided into two sections. There's the federally mandated congestion charge. Briefly, that's the cost of fixing an overburdened grid. This is the jump from last summer. An extra charge to prop up nuclear power was created. It was the single largest component increase to your bill. More on that later. The other section is the combined public benefits charge, and I know it's a little weird. The combined public benefits are underneath the public benefits, but we're just going to roll with it. This has three separate charges, and this is where the good stuff is. The system benefits include money from money-saving conservation programs, guarantees to have your power on through the cold winter months, and the low income discount rate for electricity. These are a huge help for our vulnerable neighbors. This is the bump from last summer, the smallest increase. Conservation and load management is where you find money-saving energy efficiency programs along with demand response to guard against grid stress and power outages. Renewable energy investment funds the Green Bank, which attracts $7 of private sector investment for every $1 of public seed money. Put them all together and you're looking at tens of thousands of jobs, hundreds of businesses, and significant boost to our state's economy. There's been a year-long cry for bill relief. These three charges are where that relief is being delivered. Okay, component number 4, the public benefits. I'm just going to call it public benefits is the component that has programs ultimately determined by the legislative and executive branches of our state government, which has typically relied on technical expertise from the OCC, PURA, DEEP, the Connecticut Green Bank, the utilities, some others like the Office of Financial, I forget the last word, begins with A. It's connected to the legislature. The legislature also has privy to the Office of Legislative Review where they can get further data. So these offices offer input, and they also, for the development of programs, and also in some cases manage their day-to-day management, or both. As noted, these processes fund and set programs using system benefits, conservation and load management, and renewable energy charges. The proceedings are conducted by one or more of the aforementioned organizations that have the appropriate technical expertise. I want to say that again, the appropriate technical expertise. These folks train for this type of analysis. Meetings are posted well in advance. They've got multiple opportunities for input from all stakeholders. Despite all this, there's a suggestion that the public benefits be funded not from electric bill surcharges, but from a tax through the Connecticut General Assembly's budget process. Okay, first, reducing one's electric bill and then increasing one's tax bill. Not sure how that saves money. And besides, let's pay for electric system stuff with an electric bill charge. Otherwise, you're paying for electric system stuff when you go to the hardware store, play golf, or buy a pack of gum. Second, our state budget has a cap. Move the public benefit charges into the budget and something has to go. Funding for snow removal, police, state parks, public works, education. Third, legislative hearings are vital for receiving public input and debating policy. This is a must. However, our General Assembly is a part-time legislature. They've got a lot on their plate, and they'd be hard-pressed to give this involved process the attention it deserves. They'd have to match the technical acumen and countless hours put in by our current officers and departments. Last, our current reliable proceedings give those businesses in the energy community a degree of certainty. The players know what's expected. We are witnessing at the federal level the ill effect of the unexpected governmental decrees are having on business plans across the country. Let's please not do that in Connecticut. Unfortunately, some of the General Assembly are making the critical misstep and not acknowledging the main cause of last summer's skyrocketing bills. Record-setting heat and humidity contributed to major storm damage in Oxford, Seymour, and across Connecticut. It's no longer a question of if there's a climate change connection to this havoc, but how much. This is not something we can win through inaction. In any event, it was hot and humid, we cranked the AC, our usage skyrocketed, and our bills blew up. I want to unpack the bills for comparison purposes, but a quick heads up, I'm using just one utility bill, Eversource's, to show the component proportions. That was done to save some time. UI's bills roughly track with Eversource's. Any inaccuracies in the graphics or bar graphs are mine. Apologies for that. Okay, so putting last summer's high temps aside, because they wouldn't fit on this screen, starting with supply, here's a mock-up of the two bills, one from last spring and one from July. And remember, this is supply. Supply tends to drop in price in the summer, but it's always the most expensive part of your bill. Here's the percentage of transmission, distribution, and public benefits. A small part of that public benefits rise was due to the delayed collection of hardship costs. More on that later. Most of it was the Millstone deal, which required us to send more money to Dominion Energy. People were understandably upset, and some got fooled into focusing that frustration on the part of the bill that increased the least, the part that directly helps the most vulnerable. If you happen to saw my teaser video, I referenced Ebenezer Scrooge's epiphany that when he realizes he can help Tiny Tim, epiphany when he realizes he can help Tiny Tim. Similarly, the system benefits helps people get back on their feet by preventing shutoffs, conservation programs, Operation Fuel for folks who are running dry, matching payment programs, home heating, customer service associated with the low income discount rate. Spread that word around as there are people who could really use it. Seniors come to mind. But if these programs go dark, it's not just seniors who will be in tough shape. So a thank you to the legislators who are working to safeguard them. For those who want to see them eliminated, a little exercise for you. When you pull into your driveway today and get out of the car, wait for the chill of this winter to make itself felt. Then imagine what it's like to not have a nice warm house a few steps away. And here's some things people should know about these costs. First, the hardship costs had piled up for 2 years before landing on our July bills. That will start to ease. Second, as folks get back on their feet, there's a process for repayment. According to Pura, one common misconception is that the unpaid debts from the COVID moratorium were forgiven, but they were not. These customers still owe their uncollected moratorium costs, and as customers pay their debts, this will be a credit against system benefits charges in future cycles. Simply put, they'll be paid back. Third, the legislature overwhelmingly approved the bill establishing the discount rate. That's a great move because before the discount rate was created, it was either pay all your bill or like an empty glass, none of it. Those were the only options. Now, folks who qualify for the 50% discount rate will pay half, and if they qualify for the 10% discount rate, they'll pay almost all their bill. It's based on income, which is fair, and it's worth maintaining. Next up is the Conservation and Load Management Charge. This charge supports energy efficiency programs, which we'll check out first. It also funds critical demand response programs, which we'll go into after that. But check out these numbers. In each of the past 2 years, the Energy Efficiency Board programs average 24 million in equivalent energy savings through residential energy programs, 42,000 homes weatherized, 14,000 upgrades to existing multifamily units, almost 30,000 heating and cooling systems installed, 3,300 hot water systems installed, almost 80,000 non-lighting energy efficiency products sold, 575 single-family energy efficient homes built, over 1,000 multifamily energy efficient homes built. None of this shows the savings from commercial or industrial programs, which are similar. All this drives down your bill, and we could use more of it. The load management part of this charge is also referred to as demand response, and it is critical for avoiding grid stress and, more significantly, power outages. Two demand response strategies are load shedding and load shifting. This series of graphics show how they help. The bell curve represents electricity use on a hot day. The high point of the curve is called peak demand, usually happens in the late afternoon. And while we're happy to have the power, we could do without the dirty air, the stress on the grid, and the higher prices. Load shedding is a prearranged agreement to quickly stop using power when asked. The peak falls, and it's like turning off the stove before the pot boils over. Load shifting is another prearranged agreement. This moves electric use to periods of low demand. Think of it as driving through town at 10 in the morning rather than rush hour. Quick pause number one. If these programs are budgeted through the legislature and the funds are used up, if we have a hot day, are we not then inviting power outages? Please understand that the efficiency programs just reviewed, the system benefits conservation programs before that, and the renewables we'll get to next are all demand responses in advance, and just as valuable, if not more so. Quick pause number two. Even if you have not used any of these programs, the result of others doing so means downward pressure on your bill. Demand response originated mainly with large industrial and commercial outfits like Pratt & Whitney or Sikorsky, but it's now built into incentives for residential EV chargers and whole house batteries. This means a house or business with a battery is a grid stress solution, and the batteries become valuable dispatchable power when the grid is under stress. Any EV charger with a smart meter is a grid stress solution. This is the type of thinking the grid needs, and we need more of it. For cost comparison purposes, we repeatedly spend hundreds of dollars each month on supply, transmission, and distribution, but only a small fraction on procedures like this. Okay, last of our combined public benefits, the Renewable Energy Investment Charge funds the Green Bank. Again, some impressive results. Since 2011, just $409 million in Green Bank dollars have attracted 2.7 billion in private sector dollars, resulting in 2.88 billion into the state's green economy. All right, let's break that down. That means over 700 megawatts of renewable energy, over 60,000 families saw their energy costs drop, same for over 8,000 businesses, almost 30,000 of direct or indirect job years being created. The resulting economic activity generated 148 million in additional tax revenue. 7 million pounds of asthma triggering sulfur dioxide eliminated. 8.7 million pounds of smog causing nitrogen oxide eliminated. 11.4 million tons of planet warming CO2 eliminated. And almost half a billion of lifetime public health value created. All this drives down your bill. On a personal note, I can personally attest to half a dozen instances of Green Bank assistance that have led the town of Portland, my town, and its residents to a collective 7 figures worth of savings. We could use more of this, not less. Millstone. All right, to recap, in 2017, Dominion Energy, owners of Millstone, threatened to close if they weren't guaranteed that Connecticut would buy half the plant's power at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. This was not the most transparent piece of legislation I've ever seen. The deal plays off the price of natural gas. When that price is high, we get a Millstone credit for over-collection. When it's low, we owe Dominion. It's bill number 1501 from that year, 2017. We've gotten credits in previous years, but this year that deal hit hard and was responsible for much of the public benefits charge increase. The additional payment ends with April's bill, which you'll pay off in May, but love it or hate it, the Millstone deal goes to 2029. We may get a credit next year. If natural gas prices dip again, we may get a repeat of this year. All right, here's the January to June 2025 bill. So this is where we are right now. It's hard to say exactly how things will shape up for the next set of costs, but keep your eye on the public benefits because even with no legislative action on millstone or hardship accounts, I'll say that again, even if the legislature does nothing, rates will change in July and our bill profile takes a big step towards where we were last spring. Just to be clear, we'll still get power from Millstone, but the last of the extra payments to Dominion will be done in May. The backlog of hardship accounts will have eased, and it's likely that some repayments will be on their way. The summer's heat and humidity will return, however, so remember that the programs funded here in the combined benefits are working to drive down costs in every other section of our bill, as well as improving air quality and driving down emissions that are driving up the heat. In closing, I'm going to paraphrase from the medical profession, do no harm. The benefits laid out here are real. They are solutions that work. Why argue with success? Efforts to eliminate them threaten to harm thousands of Connecticut jobs, hundreds of businesses, millions in economic gains, air quality, the vulnerable, energy savings, the list goes on. With all the positives the benefits bring, we should be putting more resources in that direction, but because of the tone of many of the bills before the Energy and Technology Committee, I'll repeat my parting thought. Do no harm. Okay, if you're interested in helping us support the public benefits, please put your name and email in the chat and we will keep you clued in. All right, that was a lot of information. I skimmed over the processes for how a bunch of this stuff gets figured out. So now I'd like to lean on Bernie Pelletier, who sits on the Energy Efficiency Board, to dive a little deeper and show us what the legislators are up against should they, number one, want to take this stuff on, and number two, want to do a credible job of it. Bernie will be followed by Charles Rothenberger, Director of Governmental Relations for Save the Sound, who will share some legislative insights and next steps. So Bernie, if you are ready and able, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I've seen that a number of times and it gets better every time. So thank you for that. I'm going to stop share for a second here. I'm going to share right from the start.
Bernie, if I could just say one thing. If you are already on the Connecticut Energy Network list, you do not need to put your name in the chat because we've already got you there. Thank you. Sorry, Bernie.
Oh, that's fine, Andy. I'm going to just really build on the foundation that Andy laid out and answer two questions. Why is this charge on the bill? And how do we know that this process is rigorously and carefully managed? Hopefully, after Andy's exposition, we understand the value of these programs. So just to take, why is the public benefits charge on our electric bill and not in the general tax? The three programs that Andy so ably laid out that live in the combined public benefit charge, between them, help people pay for their electricity, that's LIDAR and hardship, help municipalities and businesses and residents like me, I too have benefited from the Green Bank, and get renewable energy and engage in energy storage. And the Conservation Load Management Plan helps reduce demand and manage load. That's directly related to managing the electric system. You could just not do any of those things and just build more generation, but that seems foolish. The cheapest energy and the cleanest energy is the energy that you don't use. The second piece that we talked about, the federally mandated congestion charge or the federally mandated non-bypassable congestion charge, focuses on reliability, nuclear and wholesale renewables. People talk about Millstone, but we also contract with Seabrook across the way in Long Island. We have to pay ISO for managing our grid. We have storage programs, and we have peaker generation, to name but a few. These costs, there's just no getting away from them. You can't not do them, otherwise you won't have an electric system. So, as Andy put it, you're either going to pay on the bill or you're going to pay in the taxes. I want to go a little deeper, just a little bit deeper on the low income discount rate, because arguably some of you may be saying, okay, I get it that we have to have generation, but how does helping people with their bills, um, why does that belong on the electric bill? Well, to repeat the legislative history that Andy laid out, take back the grid, Section 5, ask PURA to consider the low income discount rate. So answer number one is the legislature asked PURA to do it. PURA set about doing it, and they established two objectives. Objective number one, you can think of as doing good for your neighbor, helping people who can't afford energy afford energy. Objective number two is what I would call pragmatic goodness, which is by reducing uncollectible expenses, that actually helps the rest of us because we don't have to pay for those uncollectible expenses. One of the secrets, and it shouldn't be a secret, is how many people are eligible for this program. We're not going to go into this, but just take, for example, a family of four. If they're making 49,000, almost 50,000 or less, they are eligible for a 50% reduction in their rate. If they're making 88,000 or less, they're eligible for a 10% off their bill. So a lot of the people that we see who are really upset about these bills, I have no doubt would already fit into this program and could already take care of their bill just by participating in these programs. And as it was said in the chat, this program right now has about 100,000 people in it. They didn't know how many people were going to be eligible for it. It looks more like 200,000 people are eligible for it, and they're going to break that down into 5 tiers. Some of the people in the 50% bucket won't get 50% anymore, but more people will participate and the cost won't go up. So that's the low income discount rate. We talked about why it should be on the bill. Let's talk about why it doesn't belong in the general fund. First, it relates directly to electricity consumption. When you separate a cost from a consequence, that's not a good way to run a railroad. Program costs would be spread to non-customers. The next couple points, and we're going to go into these a little bit deeper, the public process that exists now for reviewing rates is extremely rigorous. And Andy's graphic showing the legislature is almost the completely wrong place to administer a complex process like this. The RAM, the rate adjustment mechanism, is specifically designed for utility rate management. The general fund, as Andy articulated with demand response, the general fund is not well suited to volatile expense programs, and take Millstone as an example, and we'll go a little bit deeper on Millstone. And one of the most compelling reasons not to move this into the general fund is that the general fund has at least 3 times in recent history actually taken money out of these programs and never paid it back. Most notably in 2017, when they took over $100 million out of these programs. And across the country, these types of programs are put on the electric bill. If you look at the process, it's essentially a fraction. Andy, in his prior life, was a middle school teacher. I'm sure in his time he's taught many students about fractions. Well, the numerator, in this case, of that fraction is the expense for the rate period. So what do we think it's going to cost for this rate period? Plus, and this is an important plus a true up of the prior period. And as COVID in particular, and to a certain extent with Millstone, there was a lot of catch up that had to be done. The denominator is the estimated electricity sales for the rate period. These are easy words to say, but this is hard math to do. It's not for the faint of heart. We're fortunate that we have the Public Utility Regulatory Authority with the proper staff to manage this process. So PURA provides the necessary oversight, sometimes, not always, judging what expenses are going into the process, but in all cases, validating that the numbers are properly constructed into a rate. They do this through a process called a docket. A docket is a formal record or case. It has very formalized steps. It's a judicial process, really. A notice is sent out. Parties can join. There are discoveries, interrogatories. There's public comments, and you'll see in a moment lots of public comments. All of us should be commenting. There are public hearings. There's a draft decision, and then a final decision that is publicly voted on by commissioners. There are many, many dockets, but in the most recent rate case, the ones I would refer you to are 240103, which is Eversource, and 240102, which is UI. Okay, here's your eye test for the day. I tried to find a way to quickly demonstrate the volume of correspondence that goes on in one of these dockets. And all I did was take 12 screenshots. Each of these might be a letter from Bernie Pelletier, for example. It might be a 150-page PDF. It might be a spreadsheet. Let's just say there's a lot of material going on. And this is just the Eversource 240103. Question we have to ask ourselves and our legislators is, can this level of review and technical oversight be replicated in the general budget process? And utility expenses are volatile and they must be paid. So we're not going to be in a situation where we can say, oh, just slow this down. We're not going to pay it. No, it has to be paid. Having said that, we have a skilled public agency doing this rate-making process. Watching over them on our behalf is the Office of Consumer Counsel, and they are an independent agency also with skilled staff, attorneys, accountants, financial analysts, and support staff. And there are other advocates as well, so Center for Children's Advocacy, legal aid programs, and Operation Fuel, to name but a few. Just to go a little bit into Millstone, not too much. The hit that we got was because actually we had a large help. So the deal itself goes from 2019 to 2029. Simplistically said, it guarantees for the 50% of output that Connecticut utilities buy from Dominion, essentially a 5 cent per kilowatt hour rate. So they can operate their plant knowing that if prices go down, they're going to be buffered. If prices go up, it's going to benefit us. So I want to give you a quick bar chart. This is just the Eversource look at Millstone. As Andy said, you can see it was a 2020, it was a hurt. In 2021, it was a small hurt. In 2022, as we dealt with geopolitical issues in Ukraine, it was a very large help. And we got this help, and it's easier to sell a help to people than to sell a hurt. The big impact that we experienced was going from this help, $232 million, to this small hurt, $64 million in 1 year. So I'm not advocating for Millstone, only to say that it is a deal that we've contracted for. In some years, we're going to be glad we have it. In some years, we aren't. I will say I watch the local marginalized price every day. And thus far, through our very cold January and our very cold February, we're glad that we have it. I'm just very quickly going to, because Andy did a great job of covering this. This conservation load management plan is overseen by the Energy Efficiency Board, of which I am on, as well as our Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The programs are reviewed annually. There's a separate valuation committee that reviews program savings for measures supported by the plan. And the charge on the bill has not changed in as long as I can remember. So it's basically stayed at 0.6 of a cent for pretty much forever. This is my final slide, and I just want to leave you with this. Andy laid out all the things that the conservation load management plan. I'm a big believer in let's see, does it work? Sorry about that. If you look at this bar chart on the left, in 2006, we were almost at 30 million megawatt hours of electricity consumption in Connecticut. If you look at what's happened, this chart only goes to 2023. Electricity consumption in our state is down 20%. If you look at this chart, this is the annual savings coming out of the conservation load management plan, different bars, different scale, but these actions drove this decline. So just to put a cherry on the sundae that Andy laid out for us, do we really want to jeopardize a program that has been so successful as to decrease our energy consumption in this fashion? And I'll stop there.
All right, Charles, if you're good to go, then take it away. Oop, we are muted, Charles. There we go.
I think I am, and I don't know if folks can see my screen or not. If not, it's probably not the end of the world. So, great presentations and all hard acts to follow, but I just wanted to give folks a heads up that this is an issue that is going to have a hearing before the Connecticut General Assembly. It's on the schedule for a public hearing in the Energy and Technology Committee. And that could happen as soon as next Tuesday, February 18th. There is a public hearing scheduled at 11 a.m. The agenda is not yet available, but the committee having previously voted to hold a public hearing on this concept, the 18th is a pretty good bet. So I would encourage folks to visit the CGA website, and I'm sure you'll be getting reminder emails from all of the fine groups participating in this call today when that agenda is available to sign up to either provide written testimony in support of the public benefits charge, sign up to testify either in person or remotely. Both of those continue to be options this year. And really make your voice heard. I'm sure a lot of folks on this call have participated directly in one or another of the programs supported by the public benefits charge. Those sort of personal testimonies are extremely powerful. And I will note, although the hearing likely on the 18th will be broadly on the concept of the public benefits charge. So you're really wide open to bring your stories to the committee. There are a number of very specific bills that have been introduced over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks. So we know what a lot of the opponents will be saying. There's, probably 20 bills to repeal the public benefits charge outright. And as Andy and Bernie and Terry noted, repealing them outright is going to deprive all of you of the benefits of those programs. Some of those bills also say, well, let's make sure that the legislature affirmatively votes to approve these programs. And I think, as you also heard, all of these programs are there because the legislature has previously voted to establish them. This is not something that Pura has done on its own initiative. These are all legislative initiatives which are being implemented with fidelity to the law by the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. And I think we also heard that all of these programs, in addition to directly benefiting households and businesses, also provide significant benefits to the operation of our electric grid, something that is increasingly important. So I would encourage everybody to put the 18th on their calendar to look for email notices from your favorite public nonprofit group to remind you of the opportunity to participate. And to reach out directly to your own legislator, even if they're not a member of the Energy and Technology Committee. This is a broad public debate, and it may well make it to the floor of the House and the Senate. So every legislator at some point will need to be informed and knowledgeable about this issue. So I thank you all for your time and your participation, and the presenters for their fine work, and I will leave it there so that we can answer questions. Thank you.
Great, Charles. Thank you for that. And okay, so we're about to go into Q&A, and the chat is active, and that's fantastic. So Deborah, I'm going to, I've asked Deb to look through the chat, which looks to be a Herculean task right now, and throw out questions. And I want to acknowledge our presenters and once again, and then just to give them the lead on trying to address those questions. I've been following the chat. I want to give a shout out to Gannon Long, who's had a number of factual responses. And just to kind of maybe sharpen up the questions a little bit, there are factual things that we can attempt to address. In terms of like policy what ifs, then that kind of those become a little bit more difficult to give a concise, coherent answer. But having said that, we will do our best. And just to reiterate, Charles mentioned the 18th, which is the Energy and Technology Committee hearing. Also, once again, if you're not on the Connecticut Energy Network email list and you would like to receive updates on this particular issue, put your name and email in the chat, and then we will go from there. So Deborah, can you select and articulate what we got?
I can try. Yes, thank you to Gannon for answering a lot of the questions. So one of the questions had to do with supply costs. It says, I've heard that Eversource and UI sell the power from Millstone and effectively buy their energy from wholesale suppliers who make billions of dollars passing electricity from power plants to distributors. Is this true?
Andy, I can take a shot at that. The supply rate is fundamentally a pass-through. So there's a set of generators, a stack of generators, and they're agreed in advance as to what the rates are. Specifically when it comes to Millstone, and I was just answering a question in the chat sort of along the same lines, Millstone, Seabrook, and some others are a little different in that we've agreed that they will get a rate no matter what the wholesale rate is. And as my slide said, in some years, that is going to hurt us so that they will be able to, the power would have been available more cheaply if Millstone wasn't there. In other years, like when Ukraine gets invaded and LNG prices go way up and generation costs follow them up, we're glad that we have Millstone there because instead of paying 200 a megawatt hour, we're paying 50 a megawatt hour. And so aside from anything else besides that, essentially the supply rate is a pass-through for the utilities.
Thanks, Bernie. So there's another question about the payment of public benefits. as it applies to electric people who have electric heat only versus those who have gas and oil users, and do they have to pay the same public benefits as the electric folks?
I could
Go
take a
ahead.
shot, but
Go ahead, Bernie.
so Deb, I'm glad that you talked about people with electric heat. I would say roughly 5% of people in Connecticut have baseboard resistance electric heat. It is the single most expensive way to heat your home, and they do pay the same percentage charge because all those rates that we talked about are as a function of kilowatt hours. So I would say for people with electric heat, there are two things that they should engage in. Number one, and I think maybe Gannon suggested this, take advantage of the Energized Connecticut program. So if your house was built in 1950 and is not insulated, is leaky, and you have electric heat, it's really expensive. That's one thing. Thing number two is by all means check out getting a heat pump, and there's a whole variety of different kinds of heat pumps. Again, the Energized CT programs can help you with that. Why do I say that? Because heat pumps are electric heat also, but they are 2 to 3 times more efficient than baseboard resistance heat. So even though they're electric, they're going to use half or a third of the electricity that your current system does. A lot of the complaints that we see, a lot of the people who are really aggrieved have this electric heat, and I think it's an important issue for us to engage in.
Thanks, Bernie. And I know in Massachusetts, they have a special heat pump rate. So some states are going to that. So that might be something to advocate for as well. But this person happens to live in a condo. So can condo owners take advantage of these same programs?
Yes. With the difficulty that the condo association can be an intermediary. So if you're using common space, like trying to put solar on a roof, you've got to get approval from the condo association. There is a PACE webinar from about 2 years ago where we talked about condo associations and solar, but a lot of it carries over to efficiency measures also. But just to take a simple case, if you've got an air conditioner, a central air conditioner in your condo, you can have a heat pump to heat as well. So it is complicated, but it's definitely doable.
Thanks, Bernie. Here's sort of a complicated question. Folks on the webinar stated that energy management is a complex process, therefore it should not be managed by the state legislature. Are there efforts to reduce energy management complexity? And then it says shielding legislature does not make sense since energy management is and will be the central issue for the public to manage.
Yeah, that one, that's right on. It is a complex issue, and I can't give you. I mean, if I had the answer, I would be not doing this call. I'd be like on a beach somewhere on the Cayman Islands. But it really is. We're going from a 60-year-old utility grid system, large power plant, big power lines, distributed, and then to your house. That's basically what we have. We have, I mean, it's inevitable, whether we want to or not, to go to a distributed energy system. But we're still in that old system, so transitioning is going to take decades. And I don't mean this as disparagingly as it might come out, but there's a lot of people with a lot of money invested in the way things are, and transitioning, they recognize I'm hoping that we have to, but the transition usually is the messy part. Once we get to a distributed generation grid, then absolutely, I think we're going to be better off, but and that will be more simplified. But getting there is going to be like untangling a traffic jam. Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just say, it is unfortunately incredibly complicated. I'm not sure there is any way to avoid that. But that's one of the reasons why the Public Utility Regulatory Authority is really in charge of overseeing the nuts and bolts of the management of the utilities and determining their appropriate compensation through rate cases, through annual RAM or revenue adjustment mechanism proceedings. The legislature really proposes the broad strokes of policy, and then it's the regulatory agency that spends months and months and months going through literally tens of thousands of pages of documents that are submitted in these dockets with expert staff to make the final determinations. And that's why you probably don't want the legislature involved at that level of detail because they simply don't have the staff or the time or the expertise. So I would say, yeah, unfortunately, it is complicated, but that's the world we live in. But we have great regulators who are doing their best to address that.
Thanks, Charles. Bernie, Terry, before I go, just everybody, it is 1 o'clock, but I'm going to stay on. I think most of our presenters will stay on, and for folks who can hang in there, we will try to get to all the questions that have been posted. Thanks. Go ahead, Bernie.
Yeah, this is a very good question. Andy, you are precisely right. We are in the middle of a transition, and it will be messy. I've spent a fair amount of time in the dockets and in the rate cases going through spreadsheets. And the complexity is you had a system that was simple, and now we're introducing renewables, we're introducing storage, we're introducing time of use in the case of UI, and you're grafting something new onto something old. That is always a difficult thing to accomplish. The thing I come away from this, I would give Pura an A for effort, an A for diligence. I would give them a C for clarity of exposition. And I think that there's work to be done in making this process more clear. And I just want to leave everybody with one thought. There is nothing nefarious. There is nothing, it's not like Pura or the state or the utilities are doing something hurtful to us behind closed doors. This is a complicated process that is overseen by really competent people. And I'll stop. Harry, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also that, working with religious communities, everyone is so very aware of budgets that they really do things in segments, so they'll do a smaller energy efficiency program. They'll see the benefits, they'll see the reduction in their energy consumption, the reduction in their energy costs, and then they feel really good about the program, and so they'll say, okay, what else can we do? Everything you do at a 200 or year-old building is going to be an improvement at this point. And so I'm very, very, I'm sure everyone is very attuned to the idea that there are budgets that people are dealing with. But I will say the response has been so positive from these religious leaders and these building trustees who are always looking at their bottom line and trying to manage their resources as closely as they can so that their house of worship can be that community leader and that center for people to go to. So, these programs really can be implemented in ways that, are going to benefit you and benefit everybody. And that's why we should protect them.
Thanks, everybody. So there was a series of questions here from someone. The public benefit charge has existed for many years. It was reasonable prior to August 2024. Do you feel if rates went back to pre-August 2024 that would be sufficient to support all the goodness? I'm thinking they mean these low income rates, etc. This that was discussed in this session. It seemed it was running smoothly until the August date and went up 380% in August as a baseline.
I mean,
Yeah,
I would say as a matter of policy, absolutely. As a matter of politics, I may not hold my breath. Unfortunately, this is an issue that really has been politicized to a great deal. And I think even though the focus is on the public benefits charge and the how it impacts your bill and whether it belongs on the bill versus paying for it through rates, in my view, this is really an effort to unwind these programs, just full stop. So I think even if the bill impact returns to normal, people have spent a great deal of time and energy uh, politicizing the public benefits line item. And I don't think that effort is necessarily going to go away just because the impact normalizes, unfortunately, which makes your speaking out all the more important.
Oh, Bernie, you want to add to that?
I'll just add very quickly to what Charles said. The anger horse is out of the barn. I think it's going to be hard to reel them in. Um, as Andy said, there was one point that we didn't mention is that the recovery for some of these charges that were several years old was actually done over 10 months, which is really unfortunate. It should have been done over 30 months, which was the Chair Gillette's recommendation. As a consequence, it added to the shocks and the spikes that Andy articulated at the beginning of the presentation. And I think that enabled a lot of this anger, but I think it's going to be hard to reel it back.
Andy, did you want to add to that?
yeah, just for comparison purposes about how much money we're putting into this, Germany in 2010 decided they wanted to go to I think it was 20% solar, and they managed that by 2013. They had expected to do it by 2020. So it's like, how much money do you want to put into facilitating this transition, and how soon do you want to do it?
Okay, thank you. So the next question has to do with EVs owners. Do you feel those with EVs should pay higher rates or a fee due to higher rates, or require a shutdown device be part of chargers? So in a day would turn off to smooth out braking load peak.
So I'm an EV driver, and I do have a charger that was installed with rebates from Eversource. And here's why that's good. And okay, so I'm a part of their managed charging program. That means I do not charge between 3 in the afternoon and 9 in the evening. And just like any other demand response program, I get paid for that. It's $10, $10 a month. Okay, so 120 a year. This is the exact same thing that happens with Sikorsky and Pratt and Whitney. They get paid a lot of money to curtail their energy use, right? So when you look at grid stress articles or pronouncements, EVs and their chargers are not part of that problem. Okay, and if you remember the slide on conservation load management, this is load shifting. So I'm not charging when demand is high and prices are high. I'm charging in the middle of the night when it's basically price-wise, nobody cares. So to take this one step further, if we have smart meters, people will start to see their costs add up like in the latter part of the day. So they'll say, maybe I don't run the dishwasher. Maybe I don't run the clothes dryer. Maybe I turn off my pool pump at 3 o'clock, all that sort of thing. And those are all going to be grid solutions.
Barry, Barry, you want to add to
Yeah,
that?
I'll jump in on the EV conversation briefly. A lot of states handle this by having time of use rates. Unfortunately, in order to do that, you need to have smart meters. And so the managed charging program that has been developed by Pura and administered through Eversource and UI is a workaround using smart chargers or connected cars via telematics to do that load shifting. But if they ever get their act together and install the smart meters, we would have this other option, which personally I prefer because it's a lot easier for the consumer to understand, and I think you'd get higher participation.
Along the lines of smart meters. Oh, thank you, Barry. Barry is the president of the EV Club of Connecticut, just for those who don't know. It says, won't smart metering cost folks more for folks as rates would be higher in the evening when more folks are at home? And wouldn't it also hurt folks with solar as they would generate in the day when rates are higher? I guess, Barry, that's you if you want.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, you had your hand up, I think.
No. Well, it wouldn't work that way. The highest rates correlate with the peak usage period if you have a time of use rate structure. So the rates would be high during the day, until maybe until the early evening, and then people get home, and if they run their dishwasher and do their laundry and run their AC when they get home at night, they'd be paying lower rates and charge their EVs as well.
Thank you. So there's a whole lot of questions related to millstone, so I think I'll just read them all together, clump them all together, and you guys can sort them out. So it says, I thought that the increase in the public benefits charge was mainly due to the expense of updating millstone, several billion dollars. Is this incorrect? Is there an exact percentage or cost per kilowatt hour that millstone deal accounts for in the PBC? What happens to millstone's power after 2029? Are there bills underway to address this? To address that amount of electricity, non-fossil fuel at the end of the contract with Millstone. I still don't understand how Millstone cost is driven by the difference between the $50 per megawatt hour cost and the wholesale cost. Who is the wholesale cost being paid to? If it's Dominion, why aren't we just paying them this fixed rate? If it's not Dominion, why is Dominion owed money based on this difference? If anybody wants to untangle Bernie.
I'll take a shot at it. I may or may not succeed, but if we get enough questions, we should definitely follow up. I'm going to share screen with something. This is ISO New England, and when we talk about the wholesale rate of electricity, please just look at this map over here. You can see at this moment, and this changes, I think, every 5 or every 15 minutes. It changes minute to minute. We are paying $287 per megawatt hour. And why is that? That is because it is cold outside. This is a work day. To build on the conversation about peak charging, people are using a lot of power all at once. And so what happens is the generators supplying that are more and more expensive. Millstone, so I don't know if that made sense, but I put the link to this. This is a good thing to have in your sort of on your desktop. Just keep an eye on those wholesale rates. Millstone is generating power, sending it out, and they are selling it at this moment at $287. But the deal with the state is that we guarantee them 50, and if they get over 50, they have to give it back. Now, right now, this is February. When it comes to March and April, those costs will be much lower. So over the course of a year, it might turn out to be a hurt. It might turn out to be a help. But that's and I think Peter Millman posted in the chat. I saw this is a contract for differences. So it is a technical financial sort of arrangement. So that's as good an explanation as I can give at this moment.
And if I could just chip in there, something that this is this is kind of more of a lay response. Um, it has it's dawned on me that there's like two levels of electricity system discussion that can happen, and the one that Bernie just explained is extremely high level and not really a public benefits charge issue. So they are connected. Absolutely. It's not that they're not connected, but we can boost public charge benefits, and that means like low income solar energy efficiency, all the stuff that we went over. But once you get into the higher level, like who sells electricity for what, you're talking about electricity as a commodity, and that's where it gets really complex. I'll be honest, that's beyond my knowledge, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Could I just jump in, Andy? In your one of your intro slides, you had the public benefit charge. And you had two arrows coming off. One was the um, combined public benefit charge, and the other was the other pot.
FMCC.
Yeah. Yes, that one. That one contains a lot of the issues that you're talking about. Those are the technical issues of the generators, the peakers, and things of that sort in there.
Great. So I think we've answered most of the questions. We have one more that I think would be a good one to finish with. It says, do you think that the legislature should mandate a study by DEEP or PURA or OCC on power generation transitioning from fossil fuels? Other states have done this.
Yeah. I mean, it's inevitable. That's it. It's inevitable. So why don't we plan for it and make and smooth out those bumps? You know, why wait for it to just happen? With that is the situation we found ourselves in this summer, which, if you followed this stuff, and a lot of people don't, and I don't blame people for not, but for those who followed this stuff, you could see this coming 25 years ago.
And can I just say, our state is great for having aspirational goals. We're going to have a carbon-free grid by 2040, which is great. But if you go north, you go to Massachusetts, they have a plan. This is how we're going to do that. And I have one of my favorite sayings is that failing to plan is planning to fail. And I think we really, really do need a plan. And that will shake out some of these trade-offs. Right now, nobody is really addressing them in a thoughtful way. I very enthusiastically agree with what Andy said.
Charles and Terry, do you have anything to add on that?
Nope,
I mean,
that
just
was
that,
great.
yeah, some of that work is being done in other forums. I know that DEEP continues to work on the latest iteration of their comprehensive energy strategy, which does address planning for this transition, particularly as it relates to achieving a zero carbon energy structure. But yes.
There's actually one more question in the chat.
There is one more question just came through. It says, any idea what Connecticut's lowest consumption is versus what Millstone produces? Also, what's highest usage? Asking as seems nuclear likes to operate at peak all the time and gas or solar could fill the gap. Asking as it does it make sense to build a Millstone 2.0?
If I could be a grumpy old guy for just a moment, everyone should know that Millstone shuts down for an entire month every 18 months. Their reactors, they're not both at the same time, but it shuts down for a month for refueling. And for a month, it winds down. then it's off for a month, then it winds up. So in terms of do we, and I would imagine that this happens in the spring and fall. So to the question, what's its lowest usage? Well, it's zero at those times. Not both together, mind you, but this has to happen for a nuclear power plant. And if I can just go outside, color outside the lines here, do you really want to have an artificial intelligence computer power heavy driven facility counting on a nuclear power plant, given what I just said? That does not seem to be a very smart move. But to get back to the question, it's totally off when they have to refuel. And I saw questions and I was looking at something else. Did we address the smart meters question? I mean, those are, UI has them and Eversource is in the works. I'll just say that there's a disagreement about the rollout for smart meters in Eversource territory, and that's about as polite as a way I can phrase it. But I just wanted to get that out there. Deb, do you think we've covered?
Well, there is one more that just came in. You guys are popular. Is
Yeah.
there a less than 50-word answer to those who want to end the public benefits charge? So like an elevator pitch that somebody could go and give to their state rep?
You know what
Why
I always
argue?
say
Why
is
argue
that,
with success?
oh, yeah, there's
Really?
that.
Why argue with success?
But these programs, like the Millstone charge, is a state mandated charge. The non-payment of debt is a federally supported charge. So they can't end them. They can move them, but the people of Connecticut will be paying them. So the only thing that they can actually cut are these energy efficiency and clean energy programs, which are a tiny, tiny fraction and are so beneficial.
And let me just throw out an analogy. Maybe it's not a good one. Our rates are high, as we're told over and over again. We might be number 4 in the country, and that's a problem. I want you to imagine that you have a house and you have mice in your house. The mice in this case would be the high cost of power, the fact that we're number 4, not a good thing. So your solution to getting rid of the mice is to burn your house down. I think it is not it's not the way to solve the problem. In fact, the mice would probably get out anyway. So I don't think this is going to solve that problem. And as Terry said, a lot of these costs, there is not a way to get away from other than through these programs. Reduce your consumption.
I mean, I've seen it all over Connecticut, just with the houses of worship. They're reducing their energy consumption and they're reducing their energy costs, and they can see it every month and every year as it builds up.
Yeah, and I just put in the chat a link to the latest Energy Efficiency Board program report. You can also go to the Connecticut Green Bank and see their annual report for the benefits of some of the renewable energy programs. The answer is these programs are providing benefits to households and businesses in every town throughout the state of Connecticut. And saw some of the data about the magnitude of those benefits. They're significant. All of them are leveraging far more than ratepayers are putting in terms of the work that they're doing. So I like Bernie's analogy quite well. Why on earth would we think about jeopardizing them?
I will say that RIDIH, whoever you are, that is a very good challenge for us to take away, though, because
Yes.
I think between all the panelists, I think we can put together our 100-word answers and sweat it down to 50, maybe 65.
Bernie, I also just put the links in that were on your last slide in case folks are interested in those. I don't know if you want to explain what those are.
Oh, so I just put a couple links to OCC sites and to the Pura cases so that if you actually really are having trouble sleeping and you want to look, no, let me not be kidding around. these are kind of foundational documents, which I think are really will give you answers. And I think Andy has either put in or will put in a series. He's got I think 11 or 12 links that you want to share. So consider it for further reading.
Yeah, and once again, we are going to send out a list of our links to registered participants via email. Have at them as you will. I will include links to the annual reports and to OLR, OCC, Puridocs, the whole kit and caboodle. So if you have trouble falling asleep at night, you'll have a bunch of reading for you. Also, we'll keep people clued in on next steps. Once again, the February 18th Energy and Technology Committee and beyond. So I think that kind of wraps it up. I'll pause for anything from our distinguished panelists. And I'm going to hang out for a little bit. So if people who haven't gotten enough, I'll be happy to hang with you and we can have a nice chat. But everybody, thank you so much for attending. It's great to see everybody, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.